good evening, basketball world. It's In the Spotlight podcast. Your host, Mike Melton, and we live tonight. I got a very special guest tonight from D2 Sports Network in South Jersey. Um, Say hello to Kevin Emmons. What's up, Kev? How you doing, man?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm just thankful that you finally got to get you to get on here tonight, brother, so we could talk some hoops, man. And I'm anxious to get an education in South Jersey basketball. I've been around New Jersey basketball for years, and back when I used to cover Metro hoops years ago, we used to venture down into South Jersey. But then I had started doing middle school when I started basketball spotlight. So I ain't really been that deep into South Jersey basketball for years. So I'm glad to have you on tonight, man, that we could dive into it, man. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. It's an honor, for you to have trust in my knowledge and my insight to be able to come on here and talk South Jersey basketball. And I know it's something we've been trying to arrange for a little while. I know you reached out. We're actually in connection. A couple of years ago, we met at Moody Park. We're talking a little bit then. And I know we've just been trying to get our schedules to align so we can get on here and talk some hoops. And I'm excited to be on. I appreciate you having me.
And dude, indeed, like every episode we do, first we always like to honor a player that or a basketball personality that has passed away that made a real impact in the basketball community. And tonight, our honoree is Nate King. Nate King was born October 9th, 1994, and he passed away June 5th, 2021. Nate played in the basketball spotlight events with the Trenton Hurricanes. The Southpaw scorer led them to the Memorial Day Classic while taking home Mr. Memorial Day honors. The talented guard then took his scoring touch to Trenton Catholic High School, where he continued to shine. Nate had a great smile and generous personality. He will be remembered and missed by many. Man, I had the opportunity to see this kid grow up, man, and I was one of the people that was crushed when he passed away. I'm real cool with his family, his dad, Butch, and his mom, and I had went to high school. Lee used to be in my class. His mom, man, good people's man, and that hit us hard when he passed away, man. So, Nate, man, this episode 12 is dedicated to you, brother, man. May you rest in peace, man, and hope to see you on the other side, man. All right, Kev. Let's get at it, buddy, man. So take us to the beginning, man. How did you get started with D2 Network, man?
So, way before I got connected with D2 Sports Network, take you way back. When I was in high school, I took television production, journalism, and that's when I had the realization, okay, if I'm going to go to college, this is probably the career I want to pursue. It was something I had a genuine interest in. It was something I was good at. So I was like, why not do something that you're good at and you actually enjoy? I feel like that's everyone's goal in life. You want to, find a job that you enjoy doing to where it doesn't feel like work. So I went to college, started off at Rowan College at Burlington County, went there for 2 years, majored in communications, took a lot of journalism classes and stuff like that. And as I was saying to you in conversation before the show, I was taking a journalism class my second year of college. I also took a sports media class with Neil Hartman, who was on Comcast Sportsnet over in Philadelphia for many years.
Wow.
And that's when I really developed the interest in it. And I seen that I could do something with this. I seen that there was career opportunities in this field. So when I was taking a journalism class, we actually had this assignment where we had to go to a board of trustees meeting and live tweet the meeting, take notes. It was to introduce us to the world of journalism. So after the meeting, me and my friend had this realization. We're like, why don't we start something up with this for local high school sports, cover football, basketball, baseball, the sports we like, and build our names as journalists, go out to games, network with people. So that's when I created South Jersey Sports Zone, which over the years has grown exponentially on Twitter. We got over 7,000 homegrown followers now. So that's really where I started, just doing that, going out to local games, live tweeting, posting highlights, interviewing players and stuff like that, posting pictures of players of the game. And then eventually, when I transferred to Kane University for my third year of college, I actually got a job with the Burlington County Times covering high school football. They were pleased with my work, so they expanded me to field hockey, covered some field hockey state playoffs, And then eventually in the winter, I started doing boys and girls basketball. Did a little bit of that in my first year because I was just a freelance writer, correspondent, worked per assignment, helped them out in any way I could, just, gaining experience as a college student. And then in my second year there, they put me on the girls basketball beat, and I was covering girls basketball every single night in Burlington County. I had a beat that I did every single week. And then right after that, that's when COVID happened. So stopped working for them because, as I said, I was a freelancer, a correspondent. I really wasn't a part of the company. So I ended up graduating college. Shortly after that, I got a job with a school district working in a media services office. And then on the side, since I no longer worked for the newspaper, I started, really going hard with South Jersey Sports Zone, started going to games every single week, really turned it up a notch. I took what I was doing and just started putting more time and effort into it. And that's when I started to see it really take off. And then in the past, about a year ago, I want to say it was about a year and some change, Roderick Boyd, good friend of mine from D2 Sports Network, reached out to me. He's like, yo, we got to get in connection. We met one day because a lot of the stuff he does a lot of live streaming, a lot of graphic design, a lot of visual stuff. And I'm a writer. So he said, look, we're like two puzzle pieces that will fit right here. He said, I handle the visual side of things. You bring that writing ability. He said, we could create a site and kind of just, take over and try to become the ESPN of South Jersey. So that's really where it started and where it's at now. We're just, head down and work is our saying. Each day you just go out to games, network with people, just continue to build connections. And at the end of the day, it's for the kids. You want to get the kids the recognition for shining on the court, on the field, and, doing whatever you can. My hope is that when I post a player on Twitter, player of the game, so-and-so scored 20 points and had 12 rebounds today. He did this very well. Hopefully, that catches the eyes of college coaches. I'm just hoping in some way I can impact these kids in a positive way and get them in the right direction. Hopefully, as I said, get them the recognition they deserve.
You remind me of myself, man. When I started, first I was working with Metro Hoops, running around. And then I started Basketball Spotlight, and it was my own baby. So I really went hard at it, and just having that passion and that vision of what you want to do and just love what you're doing. Like you said, once you figure out something you love and then you figure out how to make money from it, you'll never work another day in your life, man. You know what I'm saying? I checked out checked out your page and some of the stuff you got on there, and I was definitely very intrigued. Talk about some of the coverage that you have on your website and on your social media platforms.
So like I said, social media wise, we try to go out to games, live scores, highlights, interviews, player of the game pictures and stuff like that. And on the website, we do a lot of game stories. I try to do a lot of feature stories when I can. And it's hard because, like I said, I work full time. So I'm occupied from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. every single day. So I try to give this as much time as I can outside of that. And sometimes it's hard when you have, obligations and priorities you got to fulfill. But our website includes a lot of game stories, even some short recaps, photo galleries, feature stories. And each season, I cover football, boys and girls basketball, and baseball in the spring. At the end of each season, I'll put together a really big postseason package, player of the year, coach of the year, final rankings, rookie of the year, and stuff like that, just to, keep people engaged. And as I said, give these kids recognition for their hard work and their talent. And they're the ones who deserve it at the end of the day.
Where do you find most of your traffic comes from? Through the website itself or through social media?
Well, social media, I'm not much of an Instagram guy because I'm a writer. It's hard to promote writing on social media.
I know.
I shouldn't, let me rephrase. I said it's hard to promote writing on social media. It's easy to promote writing on social media. Instagram, it's a little bit more difficult. You could post a link on your story or something like that, but it's hard to guide people to that. That's more of aspect of things. And that's where our Instagram page, D2 Sports Network, at D2 Sports Network 1, we see a lot of traffic there because just posting that visual, live updates with live scores, with videos and players, making spectacular plays and posting pictures as soon as the game's over, we see a lot of people coming in there. The rankings, which we're going to get into later in the show, like I do a top 15 for Instagram, we'll condense it to a top 10, make a graphic, post that on there. And within an hour, I mean, it's got hundreds of likes. So that we get a lot of traffic that way and getting people engaged with the visual side of things because people like to see things, So we use that as a tool to kind of direct them to the website, and everything kind of intertwines together.
Now let's get into your rankings first. Let's talk about what's your formula on the way you comprise the rankings.
Okay, so my rankings, the South Jersey Sports Zone top 15. In order to be included in those rankings, you have to be a member of one of the 5 NJSIAA-based conferences in South Jersey. You have the Burlington County Scholastic League, the Cape Atlantic League, the Colonial Conference, the Olympic Conference, and the Tri-County Conference. So most of those teams encompass the traditional 7-county South Jersey area, which features Burlington County, Camden County, Gloucester County, Salem County, Cumberland County, Cape May County, and Atlantic County. Now, there are some exceptions. We actually had some controversy a couple weeks ago because Trenton Catholic broke into the rankings, and a lot of people said,
I saw that.
They've never been South Jersey, which I understand that from a traditional aspect. Yes, that's Mercer County. We consider that Central Jersey. But Trenton Catholic plays in the Burlington County Scholastic League. So in their division, they're playing a Burlington County team. They're playing 4 or 5 different Burlington County teams twice a year. If you look at their schedule going into the year, they had 23 scheduled games. 18 of those 23 games were against true South Jersey opponents. When the playoffs comes around, they compete in South Jersey. So I felt that was enough to include them. I felt like they checked enough boxes when you look at the criteria. So that's pretty much the basis of how I format the rankings, who's allowed in there. And it can be a little confusing because actually when I posted the first initial rankings of the year, I had a coach on Twitter from Barnegat, which is Ocean County, the Shore Conference, asked me what defines South Jersey, because a team like Barnegat, that's Southern Ocean County, they also play in South Jersey groups for the playoffs because Southern Ocean County is pretty much South Jersey. You're not far from Atlantic City in that area.
I know.
But they play in the Shore Conference. They don't play South Jersey teams. They're playing the majority of teams in Ocean and Monmouth counties. So they would not qualify for our rankings. And then teams that are non-NJSIA can't qualify either. A couple years ago, some guys from Life Center were like, yo, can we get in them rankings? And I was like, I would love to have you. I would love to. You guys are great. But they start their season a lot earlier compared to NJSIA teams. And some seasons they play almost double the amount of games that NJSIA teams are playing. So it's hard to consider an even playing field in terms of rankings when there's 2 different criteria. You guys are playing a lot of teams out of state. There's not many mutual opponents, I should say.
And they're allowed to reclass there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that wouldn't be fair. Yeah. So let's take a look at your rankings, and then we can get into why you got each team where you have them at. And we're gonna start with the top with the big dogs, and we're gonna work our way down. So here go to the D2 Sports Network basketball rankings, and we start off with we got Camden at number 1. Tell us about them, man.
Before we jump in, I just want to clarify these rankings were through January 24th, or excuse me, January 29th, 2024, because I was already looking at some scores tonight. There's going to be some shakeups in the rankings.
Okay.
But we'll jump right into it. This is what we had based on the results through Monday. So as you said, at number 1, Camden High School, it's a no-brainer. They've been number 1 for the past couple of years, pretty much since I started doing rankings. I believe the first year I did rankings was the 2021 season, the COVID season, and Camden hasn't lost a game to a South Jersey opponent since Haddonfield defeated them in the South Jersey Group 2 final in 2019. Very talented team led by Billy Richmond, Kentucky commit, Paul VI transfer, Emmanuel Joe Samuel, who has some interest from Towson, has an offer from Towson, interest from a few other Division I schools. Elijah Curry, another transfer from Memphis East with some Power 5 offers. Very talented team. Samaj Bethea, transfer.
I saw that.
From Camden. He originally started his high school career at Eastside High School, went down to St. Augustine, played there for 2 years, and then came back to Camden. He's there now. He's eligible. Just talent all over the board. A lot of guys who you're going to see playing on the Division I level. They're led by Malik Wayans, who was a star.
That's my guy, man. I covered basketball when he played.
Absolutely. He's been on the scene for a while as a player, as a coach. And until someone is able to knock them off their throne, they're the top team in South Jersey. I mean, there's really not, you don't have to look too deep into it, I should say. They've been handling this. Early in the year, they were shorthanded with some of them transfers not available, but they still found ways to win. I actually was there when they played Paul VI, when they were shorthanded, and Billy Richmond hit a buzzer beater. They won 40-38. Just continue to find ways to win, even when they're shorthanded. Until someone in South Jersey can beat them, that's the undisputed number one team.
All right, let's go down to number 2 with my boy, Lamar Greer and his boys down in Middletown. Tell me about these guys.
Middle Township, Lamar Greer is doing a tremendous job with that group down there. Last year, they went on a run, made it to the South Jersey Group 2 final. They defeated Sterling, won their first sectional title since 2011, went on semifinals and played Manasquan. Great game. I was there for that. Manasquan was led by Darius Adams, top 25 recruit in the country right now. And that was a tremendous game. Manasquan pulled it out 46-43. And then Manasquan ended up rolling. I believe they played Caldwell in the Group 2 state final. Final was like 63-29. So Middle Township, I'm sure, was looking at that. It was like, man, if we could have broke through against Manasquan, that could have been us hoisting that trophy at Rutgers. Last year, they had tremendous success, played a tough schedule. They entered the playoffs with double-digit losses, but that's just because they were so battle-tested. They challenged themselves. They played the most competitive teams that they could play throughout the state, and they're doing the same thing this year. Everybody's back on that team. They returned all 5 starters. Michael Zarfati, who was a starter for them a couple years ago, missed last year with an injury, so him coming back has helped them out a lot. They have the McNeil brothers, Jameer McNeil and Bubba McNeil, tremendous players. Jameer McNeil's a do-it-all kind of guy for them. Really tenacious defender on the ball. He can shoot a little bit. He can score off the bounce. His brother's a tremendous shooter. And they have a 6'6" kid transfer from London, England, who came there last year. Rial Basquin, if I'm saying that correctly. Another tremendous kid to watch. A lot of fun to watch. I've seen him play Lenape earlier this year. Last year when he came in, he was 6'6". He kind of just hung out around the rim a little bit. But you can see in the summer he kind of developed that outside game. He's playing with the ball in his hands a little bit more. He can shoot a little bit. So it's definitely interesting to see how his game has developed. And they're another team. They're handling business. They haven't lost to a South Jersey opponent yet. They have 2 losses. They lost to Archbishop Carroll from Pennsylvania early in the season. And then they lost by 2 to, I get the name mixed up. It's a long name. They get called several different things. The new charter school they have in Asbury Park that's led by the former Roosevelt Catholic coach.
Yeah, CAP. Yeah, College of Chief. Yeah, College of Chief Prep.
Yep, the Asbury Park campus. Yep, they lost. Middle Township lost to them by 2. Other than that, no one else in South Jersey has beat them right now. So, and it's interesting because Camden, Middle Township, and then Haddonfield, who we're going to get into next, they're all in the same group for the playoffs. They're all in South Jersey Group 2. So that should lead to an interesting playoff field.
Yeah, I started dealing with Lamar when his son Corey played in my tournaments and stuff. When Corey was in middle school, Corey Greer, he was nice too. And that's when me and Lamar started our relationship. So I'm gonna holler at him next year to try to get him to come to something that I got going on. Next, we got a South Jersey squad that was good for years in Hattonfield. Now I'm talking about when I was first started covering, Hattonfield had Brian Zubek in them. That was back then. You know what I'm saying? They was winning state titles like crazy back then. Now, tell me about Hattonfield this year, brother.
Well, like you said, they're a traditional power. For as long as I've covered basketball, for as long as I've been around basketball, they've been good. My sophomore year, I actually went to Pemberton, and the Final Four that year in South Jersey Group 2 was Pemberton, Medford Tech in one side of the bracket, and Camden and Haddonfield. Haddonfield went into that game. I believe they were 28-0 at the time, and then Camden beat them, went on the road and beat them. And ever since then, they haven't had a down year yet. And this team right now they have is special. And I wanted to really emphasize how much of a traditional power they are because I've seen them play Delsey a couple weeks ago. And this may be one of the best Haddonfield teams I've ever seen. They're undefeated right now. They play in the Colonial Conference, which they're blowing through the Colonial Conference right now. But they have challenged themselves with a lot of out-of-conference games. They always try to challenge themselves with larger schools, and they've just been handling business. And most people who are familiar with Haddonfield basketball know if you go to a Haddonfield game, there may be games where it's a slow half-court game where they're methodical, and the final score might only be in the 40s or 30s. And they still have some games like that, but I've been to a handful of games already this year where they put up over 100 points. They can score, they're physical, they can score outside, they got guys that can handle the ball, and it's just, if you're a true basketball fan, it's fun to watch because it's just an art, the way they move the ball, they play unselfish, so well coached. And right now they sit at number 3. As I said, undefeated. I think right now Camden and Middle Township have the upper hand on them just because of strength of schedule and just talent-wise. If these teams were to match up, I feel like that's the order it would go in, Camden, Middle Township, and Haddonfield in terms of strength. and they're sitting at number 3 right now until further notice based on how well they've played this year.
And talk to me about this next team, Paul the Six, because I seen a player on a team when I had my fight against Fentanyl Classic that I really liked, the kid Isaiah Thomas. So talk to us about Paul the Six, man.
Paul the Six jumped up to number 4 going into Monday because they've been on a roll lately. They beat Camden East Side. They beat I want to say they beat Bishop Eustace, I believe, early in the year. They beat Cherry Hill West, who was a top 5 team at one point. Morristown, a team that's kind of been their kryptonite the past 2 years. Morristown beat them. They finally found a way to beat them this year. They were just handling business. And as you said, Isaiah Thomas is a tremendous player, a very athletic guard. He can get to the rim. They have Judah Hildago, Hannah Hildago, who's at Notre Dame, her younger brother. They got a lot of size. They're able to get the ball inside, get second chance opportunities on the glass. And the thing that's tremendous about Paul the Sixth is their best player from last year, Manny Joe Samuel. I touched on him earlier. He's at Camden now. He transferred to Camden. And then their second best player last year, Josh Eli, he's at Army now playing Division I basketball. So to lose your top 2 players like that and to be able to stay basically right where you were, that's impressive. And it's not like they brought in any new guys because Paul the Six is a non-public school. They could bring in whoever they want. You look at their roster, they got a couple new faces, but it's pretty much the same core from last year. And it's just guys stepping up, guys who've developed in the offseason and are taking on a larger role this year.
Now let's top off. Let's finish off the top 5 with Camden Eastside, formerly Woodrow Wilson.
Camden Eastside came onto the scene a couple years ago. Kenny Avent is doing a great job there. He came in his first year, was the New Jersey Coach of the Year because they went on a tremendous run to the state championship. Nobody had that on their bingo card going into the year. There's not one person that could sit here and say they've seen Woodrow Wilson, as they were known at the time, winning the Group 3 state championship, and they did. They've been a team that just they're lights out defensively. They're going to be in your face the entire game, and they're going to when they execute their game plan, they're a tough team to beat. I seen them play Camden earlier in the year, and they were able to hang around early on because they were executing their game plan. They had Camden bottled up in a 2-3 zone. They were taking their time on offense. They were moving the ball around, and they have a lot of athletic players as well, guys that can get to the rim, guys that can shoot, and a lot of guys who can handle the ball. Jalen Long is a tremendous point guard for them. Jahan Green is an intriguing player, someone who had a big summer this year and was starting to get on some Division I radars because of his improved shooting and his ability to get to the rim. 6'5" wing, really athletic, can use his length to get into the passing lanes and turn that into transition offense, and just using that length to beat defenders off the dribble and get into the rim. They have a lot of other guys that fill in, step up to the occasion. On any given night, anybody on that team can step up. And they're sitting at number 5 right now. They lost to Paul the Six earlier in the year, but they have some quality wins as well. They had a letdown against Bishop Eustace earlier in the year. That was an upset, but they actually bounced back and beat Bishop Eustace the other night. They have wins over Lenape, couple other good schools, and that's why they're sitting at number 5 right now. And they're a team that's actually trending up right now. They're playing a lot better than they were earlier in the year, and they're going to be a team to watch as the Group 3 playoffs come around.
Okay, let's get at it. All right, let's go to 6 through 10. Coming in at number 6, Lenape.
So Lenape is a team, my preseason rankings, I had them at number 3. They made it to the South Jersey Group 4 final last year. They brought a lot back from that team. They have Ty Dorsett, Mary McCommit, tremendous player. We're going to talk about him a little bit later in the show. South Jersey Player of the Year candidate. Miles Primus, a transfer that came over from Medford Tech last year. Very athletic, fun to watch, very bouncy around the rim. He's had a couple putbacks this year, 2-hand jams, on a shot that comes off left or right. He's always around the rim. They got guys that can handle the ball. And the thing that makes Lenape so good is I actually seen them play Eastern a couple weeks ago. That was a huge game. Basically was to determine who the favorite would be in South Jersey Group 4 at this time. Lenape won that game, and Lenape actually beat Eastern tonight again. And the thing that showed how good of a team Lenape is was that night they had role players stepping up. Had a kid, Matt Liebling, that maybe averages 3-4 points a game, had a career-high 20 points that night. They challenged him to step up. Eastern kind of focused on the primary scores, slowing them down, neutralizing them. The role players stepped up. And they're the team to beat in South Jersey Group 4 until further notice. I mean, they beat Eastern twice this year already, and they were there last year. They were right there. They had Egg Harbor Township on the ropes, who was an experienced team and ended up going to the Group 4 state final. So until further notice, Lenape's the team to beat in South 4 right now.
Yeah, so I had Ty and the other kid Premise in my fight against Fentanyl Classic when I had the South Jersey kids play against Mercer County. Both of those kids were definitely talented and worth the invite, man. So let's check down to number 7. Talk to me about Eastern High School, man.
Now, Eastern was a team that started off red hot. Early on through their first 15 games, through their first 16 games, they were 15-1. Their only loss was to Camden. They were up to number 3 in my rankings at one point, and then they actually, a team we're going to talk about later in the rankings, Mainland actually beat Lenape earlier in the year. Lenape, who we just touched on at number 6. Eastern beat them in overtime. That's the best game I've been to this year. They went on the road and beat them on a Saturday morning in overtime. And they're going to be right there with Lenape. They lost to Lenape twice this year. They actually lost to them tonight. Last week, they were down, I think, 11 in the third quarter. They found a way to come back, rallying that game, cut it to 1 late in the game. And right now, they look like they're the runner-up to Lenape right now. Those two teams are going to be the 2 teams to watch in South 4, along with Central Regional Short Conference team who's experienced. And, of course, you're going to have some sleepers. Atlantic City, who we're going to touch on later on, is a good Group 4 squad. Rancocas Valley, always got to watch out for. Cherry Hill East, Cherokee, all them guys. But Eastern is led by Max Portnoy. He's a very fun player to watch. I believe he played AAU with Team Final Black. And I believe his teammate Damian Edwards did too. Damian Edwards, one of the best shooters in the state. Last year, he had nearly 100 threes in a season alone. 1,000-point scorer, over 200 career threes. He's got a quick release. You get that ball to him off the screen, gets it out quick. And Max Portnoy is just a do-it-all kind of guy for them. Past couple of years watching him play, kind of played more like a wing, kind of like a forward for them on the high school level. And this year he's been bringing the ball up the court. He can facilitate. He can get to the rim. He can shoot a little bit. And they're another team that's experienced, whose role players step up for them. And that's big. On any given night, anybody can step up for them and give you 20 points. And that's huge, as we approach the playoffs.
Some of these teams I never heard of. Like, I heard of Eastern, but like some of the teams I never heard of their like basketball programs. Like, and it's you real good at breaking this stuff down, man. You definitely got a talent with it, especially like Morristown High School. I never even been to their gym before. Tell us about them, man.
Morristown, is the epitome of a well-coached program. Last year, they were like the consensus number 4 team. Like every South Jersey ranking you could think of, most people had them like number 4 last year in the final rankings, without a single all-South Jersey player. And I'm not saying they didn't have tremendous players. They just didn't have one spectacular standout that stood out above the rest. And that's a product of good coaching and guys being acclimated to their roles. They won a Group 3 state championship a couple years ago, 2019, I want to say. And it's the same thing this year. They're a well-coached team. They have 5 losses. Some people may think they're a little too high in the rankings, but something I take a lot of consideration into is strength of schedule. And
you have
Morristown,
to, yeah.
In Morristown, all their losses are to top teams. They lost to Camden, they lost to Paul VI, they lost to Eastern, and they're a battle-tested team. They lost to Cherry Hill West early in the year, who was a top 5 team at one point. They earned redemption. They came back and won that, and they're defending Burlington County tournament champions. Last year was the first ever Burlington County tournament, and Morristown won it. They beat Lenape. They won the South Jersey Group 3 title last year. They were 1 game away from the Group 3 state championship. And they're another team that's, used to playing in the postseason, hosting big games, and they're a team to watch going forward. Same thing I said with Camden Eastside. They're a team that's trending upwards right now.
Okay. Next up, you even took it down to Ocean City. Tell me about this bunch, man.
Ocean City has been, I don't want to say the surprise team of the year. I feel like that's a little too extreme. But going into the year, nobody had them in their top 10, their top 15s. They went on a run last year to the South Jersey Group 3 final. They lost to Morristown in the final. They upset Timber Creek on the road in the first round. I was there for that game. And Ocean City was a team that kind of benefited from the situation where Camden and Eastside, the Camden City School District, removed them from the playoffs, because Ocean City would have probably played Eastside in the second round. Who's to say what happens in that game? We'll never know. But Ocean City ended up hosting a second round game as a 10 seed. They beat Clearview. They beat Absegami, and the next thing you know, they find themselves in the South Jersey Group 3 final. They lose to Morristown. They brought 3 starters from that team, and they've been tremendous this year. They just picked up a huge win against Mainland the other night. They have 2 losses this year. 2 losses to the same team, Middle Township, who we touched on at number 2. And right now, they look like the second best team in the Cape Atlantic League. They look like right now they'd be the team playing Middle Township in the Cape Atlantic League tournament final.
Okay. Now let's round out this top 10 with the Vikings from Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, another surprise team this year. They were a team last year that started off kind of slow, lost their first couple games, and then hit their stride. Had picked up a couple big wins, some eye-opening wins. They knocked off some good teams. And Wayne Nelson, his second year there, is doing a tremendous job. He was saying, I talked to him after a win against Lower Cape May earlier in the season. And he was telling me how this year he was able to finally be around his team in the offseason, kind of build, a system that prepared the players, where last year they didn't really have the ability to do that. He was kind of just thrown into the fire with being his first year. And they're a team that gets after you. They got a lot of different guards. They'll go into their bench 10, 12 deep. They're one of them teams that there's guys that come off the bench for them that could be starting, but they filter different guys in. They're constantly in your face. They don't get tired out. The game I seen them play against Lower Cape May, it was a tie game at halftime. It was 25-25. Atlantic City by nearly 30 points because in the second half, they just weren't running out of gas. They could just throw guys at you, double team, blitz and ball, and next thing you know, they're again, offense in transition. And the statement win for them earlier this year was and there's another Group 3, South Jersey Group 3 title contender in a little bit. Coming in the year, a lot of people had them in the top 5, the top 10. Another experienced group. One tournament with the same group 2 years ago. Atlantic City came in and beat them by 1 point. And that was really things where people had to look at them and say, look, this team's legit.
Check your connection a little bit. You were starting to break up a little bit. Can you hear me? Yeah, it's starting to break up a little bit. Can you hear me now? Yeah, you froze. You should I don't know if you should go out and come back in because it's like you froze on my end. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, you kind of breaking up. Your signal breaking up a little bit.
Let me even.
Let me see. All right, let's try number 11, mainland. Okay, yeah, you broke it up. Yeah, you should go out and come back in. Take a pause right here, people, so we can get this straight. Hopefully, you come back on. This guy, young fella, knows his stuff, man. I'm definitely impressed with him breaking down the South Jersey teams. Can't wait to get into the player of the year and the coaches of the year and this and that. Very knowledgeable. I'm learning a lot about South Jersey from Kev tonight, man. Definitely learning a lot. Hopefully get him back on soon. Waiting for Kev to click back in. His phone was went a little. His connection started bugging a little bit. Hopefully, we'll get him back on here and finish out the podcast. Yeah, this is the thing when you do virtual. Sometimes you deal with these kind of situations. So hopefully, we could get him back on, man, and get the rest of the podcast done. It was rolling good till we got to Atlantic City, man. Mm. He said his Wi-Fi went out, man. Jeez. So we're gonna have to shut this down. Waiting for Cab to come back on and see if he could get back on. If not, then we just gonna have to call it and then try to reschedule to finish the podcast. Young fella, very knowledgeable too. I'm gonna end this stream and just we made it to number 10. Hold up, let's see. I think it's him trying to come back on now.
Can
Can
you
you
hear me
hear me?
now?
Yeah,
I
you
can hear
good?
you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, good. We're back in business. Technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on, but fingers crossed, it's working now. So hopefully, we got no interruptions.
All right, let's go. Let's kick at it with number 11, Mainland.
So Mainland, as I said, is another South Jersey Group 3 title contender. 2 years ago, they went on a run and won the Cape Atlantic League tournament with a group of predominantly sophomores, and that group is seniors now. Cohen Cook, tremendous three-sport athlete that plays football, basketball, and baseball. He'll be going to New Hampshire to play Division I football. Tim Traveling is a great 3-point shooter for them. Jamie Tyson, another kid who's going to play Division I football at Villanova. Tremendous rebounder, very energetic around the rim. He had a tremendous year. He was the Defensive Player of the Year in New Jersey for football. He was my Defensive Player of the Year for South Jersey as well. A lot of coaches seen him play, and they said, I don't know if he'll be committed to Villanova for long. This is a Power 5 defensive back right here. And it translates well to the basketball court. They're basically their entire football team plays basketball. And early on, they started off the season red hot. They beat Lenape, who we talked about earlier in the rankings, who's at number 6 right now. They beat them by 17 in the Score at the Shore tournament at Southern Regional in Manahawkin down by Long Beach Island. But then they've had a couple hiccups since then. They lost to Eastern in overtime, who's a solid team. They lost to Atlantic City. They lost to Central Regional, a short conference team I talked about earlier, who will be a contender in South Jersey Group 4. So no bad losses on the resume, but a couple losses that dropped them in the rankings simply because there was teams that beat them who were in the rankings head-to-head who deserved to have that nod ahead of them. But again, an experienced team, well coached by Dan Williams. My former coach at Pemberton, Roy Heck, is actually on that staff as an assistant. So it's a well-coached program. They'll be a team to watch. I believe they're first in power points in South Jersey Group 3. And that just tells you the type of schedule they've played. So definitely a team to keep an eye on as the playoffs come around.
Okay. Now, I've been hearing a lot about this team because, I'm originally from the Trenton area, and this team just beat Trenton Catholic. And I saw that they had some player that had just returned to their team that was supposed to be nice. Let's talk about Cinnamon at number 12.
Yeah, Cinnamon last year had the best season. Excuse me. They had their best season in program history last year. Went 25-3. They didn't have the strongest schedule, so that kind of caught up to them in the playoffs. They played Middle Township, and Middle Township kind of throttled them there. They beat them by about 30 points or so. But this year they brought back everybody. They have a set of twins, the Harvey twins, Drew Harvey and Noah Harvey. Noah Harvey is going to be playing Division I baseball at Richmond. Sodi Gant, Colin Parrish, Andrew Plaza, an experienced group. They moved the ball well. I've seen them play Medford Tech early in the year. Medford Tech tried to overwhelm them with a 1-3-1 zone press, and Cinnamon wasn't flustered at all. A lot of younger, inexperienced teams in those situations, you'd see them get flustered and start coughing the ball up. Cinnamon just executed, got the ball to the middle of the floor, moved it around, and hit their shots. And as you said, they had a big win against Trent Catholic the other night, and they're red hot right now. They had a loss to West Hampton Tech earlier in the year. They were upset by West Hampton Tech because Drew Harvey, the one brother who had 31 points against Medford Tech the other night, they beat Medford Tech in 5 overtimes. They played. That was the second time they played him. I seen them the first time they played. They beat him by 15. Since he came back, he missed the West Hampton Tech game with a concussion. That's the game they lost. Since he came back, they haven't lost since. And they would actually be higher on this list. They played Mainland earlier in the year at the Jimmy V Classic at Cherokee High School. Cinnamon was in control, led that entire game, led going into the fourth quarter. Mainland took the lead. Cinnamon had a pair of free throws with a second left, missed both of them, end up losing 50-49. They win that game. They're at least another spot higher and maybe even in the top 10 with how well they've been playing. So they're another team that contributes to a loaded South Jersey Group 2 with Camden, Middle Township, Haddonfield. So definitely a team to keep an eye on. And as I said, last year they got to the playoffs. They were a little shell-shocked when they played a very talented team like Middle Township because they didn't have that strength of schedule. And that's not their fault. They play who's on their schedule, who's in their division. If it's a down year in your division, you really can't control that. They handle business against who was on their schedule. So now this year they had that another year of experience under their belt. It was a lesson to be learned, and we'll see what they can do this year.
Okay. All right, let's take it over to Cherry Hill West.
So Cherry Hill West is a team 2 years ago that went on a run to the South Jersey Group 3 semifinals with a bunch of freshmen and sophomores. They were coached by Aaron Burt at the time, who is involved with Team Final. Yeah. A lot of people in the area know who Aaron Burt is. He was a star at Camden High School himself. That was 2 years ago. That was, an experience for them to build on. They didn't expect to be there. They went into the playoffs with a below 500 record, and they ended up playing in the the sectional semifinals. They lost to Burlington Township. Last year, they brought back that same group, finished at 500, made the playoffs, lost the first round game. This year they brought everybody back, and they started off the year red hot. Now this is a team, how we talked about going into the rankings, how I said some things are going to change because these rankings were through Monday. Cherry Hill West actually lost to Shawnee tonight and lost them the other day. So unfortunately, they'll be falling in the rankings a little bit. They lost to Paul VI recently. They lost to Morristown. Early in the year, though, they were on a roll. Picked up some key wins. They beat Morristown on the road. I was there when they beat Morristown on the road before Christmas. I mean, it's not often you see a game before Christmas that's a playoff-like atmosphere the way that game was. They got a kid, Quinn Gibson, who's averaging close to 22 points.
He played in my event. Yeah.
Excuse me. Ben Mans. Just a really good group. Fred Batiste in his first year coaching there. But he's been an assistant in the program under Aaron Burt for a while. So he knows he's told me he knew these kids, since 5th grade, being involved with travel basketball and stuff like that. So they're a team, they kind of stumbled a little bit lately. This was a team, they were as high as number 5 in my rankings at one point this year. They've stumbled a little bit, but they're a team I expect to make some noise in the South Jersey Group 3 playoffs. And how we talked about Group 2's loaded with Camden, Middle Township, Haddonfield, Cinnamon. South 3 is another one with Camden East Side, Morristown, Mainland, Cherry Hill West. A lot of good teams in that group that it's pretty much anyone's game. Ocean City, another one that we touched on in the top 10. Anybody can win that group. And Cherry Hill West is a team that I expect to figure it out, and they'll be a team to watch, come the postseason.
All right, Timber Creek. I remember them being good a couple years back.
Timber Creek, another South Jersey Group 3 team. They're another team that doesn't have many blemishes on the resume. They jumped into the top 15. A couple teams lost, and they've been playing very well recently. I believe they have 3 losses. They lost to Mainland, who's at number 11 by 7. They had a forfeit loss against Egg Harbor Township because of there was a rule that they violated. They played 3 games in a week, something like that. I'm unsure of that, but they had to forfeit that game. And then they had another loss earlier in the year against a very good team. So they're a team that's just been handling business. They've been playing very well lately. They haven't lost past couple weeks. And they're another team to just watch in South 3. They bring back a lot of guys from last year. They were a team that was ranked last year. They won the Tri-County Conference tournament and then got upset in the first round of the playoffs by Ocean City. But they bring back a lot of guys. They're a well-coached program. Another team that is expected to make noise come the Tri-County Conference tournament and the South Jersey Group 3 playoffs.
Now, round out your top 15 with the outsider, Trenton Catholic.
Yes, Trenton Catholic, the team we touched on earlier in the podcast, how I said they're not South Jersey traditionally because they're in Mercer County, but they check all the boxes for being a South Jersey team playing in the BCSL. 18 out of their 23 scheduled games going into the year were against true South Jersey opponents. They play in the South Jersey non-public B bracket when the state playoffs come around. And they were in the top 15 as a product of starting off well, playing in the BCSL. They beat Medford Tech. They actually lost to Medford Tech by 15 tonight, so they're another team. They might be falling out of the rankings come next week, but they played Paul VI close, and they don't have many blemishes on their resume either. And Trent Catholic is a traditional power. We know the amount of people that have came through there, guys that have played in the NBA. And the past couple years, I know they had, a couple years ago, the school was getting ready to close its doors. So they were going through some growing pains as a program and an institution and stuff like that. And they found their footing. They're competitive again. And it's great to see. It's a traditional program. They're the kind of team that when they're good, it makes basketball in the area better. And it's good to see them, back to, what they used to be, a traditional power team that plays good basketball and, has a high standard of competitive quality basketball.
Indeed. Now do you have like one or two teams that was on the bubble that then crept into your new rankings?
Yes, so I actually do. I'll do a teams under consideration portion. I try to include 10 teams.
Okay. Now we don't got to go through all of them. You could just give me.
No. We won't get into all that because there's levels to that too. There's different tiers to that, but I try to include. I try to make it 25 teams. You got your top 15 and 10 teams that are on the bubble, but the ones who are right there on the bubble would be Medford Tech, who started off the year very well. They got swept by Cinnamon, lost to Trenton Catholic, so they were kind of forced out of the rankings. But as I said, they beat Trenton Catholic by 15 tonight. They may find their way back into the rankings come next week. Shawnee is another traditional program that was very good back in the 90s, won state championships under Joe Kessler, and he's still there going strong. they've been trending upwards. They're a younger team, but they've been playing really good basketball. They've been on a winning streak, and they beat Cherry Hill West, who we have at number 13 for the second time this week. So that's another team trending upwards. And Camden Catholic is another one, another team that is a traditional power. They're a little bit on the younger side this year. They took Camden to overtime. Bless you. They took Camden to overtime a couple nights ago. Camden was without Billy Richmond, but still plenty of Division I talent for them on the floor. For Camden Catholic to be a young team, to be able to hang around with them and force overtime. I know coaches say there's no such thing as a moral loss, but from a media perspective, that's a loss you look at and say, okay, that team played well. I'm sure, they're happy with where they're at right now. It's not the result they wanted, but they can be proud of the effort that they put in. Then shortly after that, they played Manasquan, a Shore Conference power, in the Jeff Coney Classic, Rancocas Valley. They jumped out to a big lead. They were up double digits at one point, eventually went down double digits in the third quarter, came back and won that game after picking up a win over Cherokee earlier in that week, which was a huge statement win. And then last Sunday, they beat Paul VI, who we just mentioned, at number 4, and they played again tonight. And Camden Catholic was actually in the lead last I seen. I don't know what the result is on that game. So Camden Catholic's another team that could find themselves in the rankings just with how well they've been playing. Now, they had a couple hiccups early in the year because, as I said, they're a younger team. They lost to Cinnaminson by 10. They lost to Medford Tech by 9 in the Paul VI Showcase. And that's where rankings gets hard because, you got A beat B, B beat C, and C beat A. It gets a little complicated. Then you got to look at records and just how teams are trending, who's been playing well lately. So that's what's a little hard because Camden Catholic had some, blemishes on their resume early on, losing to teams by double digits. And a team like Cinnaminson, who's been handling business, I can't put Camden Catholic ahead of them. But at the same time, Camden Catholic deserves its recognition and should be a team that's considered for the rankings with how well they've been playing. And as I said, beating Paul VI, who's the top 5 team right now, is a huge statement win.
Yeah, now we talked about the teams, who the top teams down there. Now let's get into some of the individual players. Let's start off with your player of the year candidates.
This is a list that could get even deeper. It's hard at the middle of the season. There's so many people that you can consider. But right now, these are probably the main guys I'm looking at right now. I think Billy Richmond from Camden High School would have to be the favorite right now. Kentucky commit, averaging close to a double-double, if not a double-double. And as I said, Camden Catholic played them the other night, and he was out. And Camden still has plenty of Division I talent on the floor, and Camden Catholic was able to hang with them. It was a difference maker not having him. And he had that buzzer beater against Paul VI that I seen. And he's just one of them guys who's a game changer. Even last year, playing with DJ Wagner, Aaron Bradshaw, he was that guy who could fill a lane in transition. Someone dishes it to him. He comes up, windmills it or something, brings the crowd to their feet. He made them momentum plays that changed the momentum for his team. They brought energy and stuff like that. He's just a game changer in so many ways. He's pretty much unstoppable in transition. I'm not saying this is his pro comparison, but sometimes in transition, he reminds me of early Ben Simmons before, Ben Simmons stopped playing basketball, but a guy who was pretty much unstoppable downhill and could not be stopped once he got into the lane. I mean, there's plays I've seen him make this year where he gets into the lane. It looks like he's just going to lay it up and he goes and just dunks on someone, or, they just get out the way because they don't want to get dunked on. So I think with how he's been playing, he's the best player on the best team in South Jersey, the best public school team in New Jersey right now, according to many news outlets. And I think, just with that and his impact, I think he has to be the favorite right now. But there's a lot of guys that are on his tail. I mean, Ty Dorsett, we talked about earlier in the show, Merrimack commit, going to be playing Division I basketball. And he's a kid. I've seen him play the past couple of years. He was a role player for Lenape as a sophomore when they had Derek Simpson, who's at Rutgers now.
Yeah,
and
I know Derek.
It's funny. On our off the glass South Jersey High School basketball show we do a couple weeks ago, we actually had Cherry Hill West coach Fred Battie, who I mentioned earlier, and then Quinn Gibson, a kid we're going to get into. And each time we get a coach on the show, we ask them, like, who was the best player that you've seen this year or since you started coaching that was really a challenge for you to game plan against? And he said Ty Dorsett, and he was explaining how, watching him play with Derek Simpson a couple years ago, he was, the skinny sophomore in the corner who just hit threes, when they kicked it out to him. and then he had that growth spurt, developed into his own kind of player, and now he's a guy who plays with the ball in his hands. He's like 6'4", 6'5" now, and is just tremendous at getting to the basket. And he's an electrifying player. He's averaging about 19 points per game this year. Lenape is the team to beat in South Jersey Group 4. And I think right now he's right behind Billy Richmond in terms of South Jersey Player of the Year.
Tell me a little bit about the kid Mitchell down there with Middle Township.
So Jameer Mitchell was another guy who was pretty much a consensus All-South Jersey selection last year. He's not Middle Township's leading scorer, but he's their do-it-all guy. He fills up the stat sheet with points, assists, steals. He can shoot a little bit. He's usually defending the other team's best guard, their ball handler, and he's really just the glue guy for Middle Township. That's another talented team, sort of like Billy Richmond. You look at the impact. You look at him being the most impactful player on one of the best teams in South Jersey and kind of being able to rally his teammates. I mean, he's a fun player to watch because he contributes in every facet of the game. And when you're doing that for a team that's number 2 in South Jersey with state championship aspirations, you definitely should be considered for Player of the Year.
All right. Now we got some of the top players out the way. Now let's go to the skippers, the guys that run the show, the coaches. Let's see who your candidates for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, so this is a tough one. Coach of the Year is one thing where you look at it midway each year when we hit that mid-season point. I kind of try to think of a couple candidates that I have in mind. And this is something, it's the same thing with Player of the Year. It could change very quickly. I mentioned earlier in the show about how Eastside went on that unprecedented run to the state championship. Midway through the year, I had Kenny Avent as a candidate for Coach of the Year. By the time they went on the run to win the state championship, I said, this is undisputed. And he ended up winning state Coach of the Year that year. I mean, it was a no-brainer. So one of these guys on the list, someone who's not on the list could emerge and, go on a run, win a county tournament, win a playoff game, go deep into playoffs, exceed expectations, and really, carve out their name as the Coach of the Year. But to me right now, these are a couple guys that exemplify, their teams playing well, or teams that overcame something. Something I look at in terms of like my criteria for Coach of the Year is I look at teams that are doing well that you might not have expected to be on a radar, going into the year. So that's why right now I have John Bruno from Ocean City towards the top. Been a coach for many years. He's closing in on 500 career wins. As I said earlier in the show, Ocean City is a team that a lot of people felt would be competitive. They went on a run to the South Jersey Group 3 final last year, brought back 3 starters. But to be 17-2, 18-2 right now, their only 2 losses to Middle Township, and they went toe-to-toe with them in both games. I don't think anybody foreseen that coming. And right now they look like a team that could make serious noise in the Cape Atlantic League tournament and the South Jersey Group 3 tournament. Same thing with Fred Battie, another coach mentioned a few times in the show, Cherry Hill West. I think it's interesting that he was able to come in as a first-year coach. And as I said, he's been around the team as an assistant, coaching the guys in travel and stuff like that. But to be able to come in as a first-year coach and be able to garner that respect and be able to perform at the level that they've been performing at, that makes him worthy of Coach of the Year. And then you have Wayne Nelson, another guy who I mentioned earlier, a team last year that kind of stumbled out the gate and then had a couple surprising wins. They came back this year, and they're another team that doesn't have any standout, clear-cut all-South Jersey guys, but just a collective team effort. As I said, they could play 10 to 12 guys on any given night, and they're a tough team to beat, and that's a product of good coaching. And their team right now, I don't think anyone had them in their preseason top 10, and right now they're a consensus top 10 team in South Jersey, and another team that will be a threat in the Cape Atlantic League tournament. Then you have Tony Devlin. I mentioned Paul VI earlier. The reason I have him in the conversation is because you look at a team that lost their best player because he transferred to Camden. Your second best player graduated, is playing Division I basketball right now. And they just have guys who have developed and have just grown from last year to this year, and they're playing at a high level. I mean, going into the year, a lot of people kind of had them, back end of the top 10, maybe, in that 11 to 15 range. And they were a team that was in the statewide top 20 last week, top 3 in South Jersey for a couple weeks. They've been handling business and really overcoming adversity and overcoming the absence of, the departure of 2 key players. I think that's worthy of, being considered for Coach of the Year. And then at the top of the graphic there, I see you got Paul Weideman and Lamar Greer, just two coaches who have experienced teams, kind of different in terms of the other teams where I said they kind of exceeded expectations so far. These were two teams that had high expectations, but they just came into the year and they've just been handling business. I mean, you're coaching a team that's 19-0 right now. You should definitely be considered for Coach of the Year. And same thing with Lamar Greer. They're undefeated against South Jersey competition, and they're just finding ways to win. And he's doing a tremendous job with them guys. You see the growth and development in those players from last year to this year. And he's built the culture there at Middle Township and has them back at where they were when he was a player there and he was a McDonald's All-American when they were, a perennial contender back in the 90s.
Noticeably absent is Malik Waynes at Camden. Is he like a victim of his own success?
I don't think he's a victim of his own success, and he's doing a tremendous job. I don't want that to get twisted. It kind of just falls into, as I said, the expectation. I mean, Camden is right about where everyone expected them to be. And I guess you could consider him in that conversation in the same sense that the Haddonfield coach and Middle Township's coach is considered. So he's another one who could definitely be in the conversation. I was just kind of rattling off some guys quick when you hit me up. He definitely could be in consideration with what they've been able to do, because even though they have a lot of Division I talent and they should be beating teams, they were shorthanded in many situations and they found a way to win. And that's a product of, guys like Billy Richmond stepping up and a product of good coaching. And the thing I love about Malik Waynes, every time I've talked to him, he's always said, like last year, he was coaching a team that had DJ Wagner, Aaron Bradshaw, Sion Medley, Billy Richmond, Cornelius Robinson. I mean, a loaded team. And his philosophy has been, hey, my job is to just stay out of these guys' way. He said, I got to give them direction. He said, but don't get in their way. Let them be great. They're talented. Let them do their own thing. And it's a good philosophy to have when you are dealing with a team that talented. And he does a good job, keeping them, you don't have to worry about egos or anything like that. So he's definitely doing a tremendous job at that program, keeping them together. And, it's a high profile program with the national recognition they've received the past couple of years. So to be able to maintain that success, that's a credit to him and his staff and the players.
Great job. Great job. Now let's get into some of the fresh faces. In this era of basketball, a lot of freshmen and young sophomores and stuff like that, they're getting thrown to the fire early. So let's talk about some of the newcomers that you talked about that you consider that's nice right now.
Yeah, so see, these are some of the guys. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get out and see a lot of these guys yet, but thankfully, as you said, they're newcomers, they're freshmen, so we'll have a lot of time to see them. But Tymir Lacater, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, to be completely honest, at Salem High School. I believe he leads all freshmen in scoring right now. Salem is a threat in South Jersey Group 1. They picked up a huge win over Wildwood tonight. So, I mean, when you're contributing like that right away at a team that has sectional title aspirations, I mean, you're deserving of being on a list like this. Bryce Clark from Camden Catholic, I actually did see him play against Manasquan the other day. Very small, quick guard, and he's one of them guys that doesn't look like a freshman when he's out on the floor. He's composed, he has poise, playing at a storied program like Camden Catholic. That's what they're looking for. Them guys who can come in and contribute right away and be under control, be calm in big moments. And he did that well. He handled the ball. He could shoot a little bit. Tyler Branson's another one I have seen. He was actually growing up in Pemberton. I worked a summer camp for the youth when I was in high school and college. And he actually was a Pemberton kid that came through our camp. So I had him and his brother as students in my camp a couple years ago. He's a freshman at Medford Tech. And he's been tremendous for them. I mean, Medford Tech, he hasn't had to contribute for them scoring wise because they have Trey Powell, who's averaging 21 points a game, garnering some Division I interest. Nesta Rice, another 1,000 point scorer. Robbie Conyer, another 4-year starters closing on 1,000 points. So Tyler Branson's been kind of a facilitator for them, a good on-ball defender. Another kid, he's kind of tall and lengthy for his age. You wouldn't think he's a freshman on the floor. If you went out there and seen him play, he's mature on the floor. You're like, okay, this kid's a sophomore or junior. He's done a tremendous job contributing on both ends of the floor for them, and that's a team that is going to be in the mix in South Jersey Group 2. Makai Campbell, another kid I haven't seen yet, but from what I've seen, he's done a good job filling it up. He can rebound for them. He can score. Holy Spirit's a program that's been traditionally strong the past couple of years. It's kind of a down year for them right now because they're going through a rebuild. They're younger. So a player like him who's contributing on the boards and finding ways to score, that's a good asset for them going forward if he stays there. Jalen Bell, Egg Harbor Township. It's actually the coach's son, Cameron Bell. Cameron Bell led Egg Harbor Township to the Group 4 state championship last year. They fell short the Patterson East Side. And Jalen Bell's another kid who's done a tremendous job scoring the basketball. They graduated their entire starting five from last year that played in the state championship. So now it's just someone else to step up. He's averaging close to 12 points a game this year. So kind of emerging as a new scorer that they can lean on going forward. Max Silvestri, Haddon Heights, another kid who's contributing scoring-wise, averaging close to 9 to 10 points per game. Haddon Heights is the team that's traditionally been good in South Group 2. Another team going through a little bit of growing pains right now. A young team. But again, when you have a kid that's finding ways to score early on like that, that's something to build on going forward. Xavier Sabb. I got to get out and see this kid play basketball. He's a tremendous football player. He's actually going on a visit to Alabama.
What?
Yes, sir. He is
as a freshman.
Yes, he is a freshman at Glassboro High School, a national recruit in football. His brother, Keon Sabb, also played at Glassboro. He was at Glassboro. He went to Williamstown and then went down to IMG Academy. He just won a national championship with Michigan. He was a starting safety for Michigan this past year.
Wow.
And there's another brother. Xavier has a brother a grade ahead of him, Amari Sabb, who's also getting Division I interest in football and just tremendous athletes. I mean, these kids are quick. I mean, I haven't seen them play basketball yet. I've seen some clips on Twitter of them dunking and stuff like that. Just tremendous athletes. There was clips of them playing football in middle school where they were the fastest guys on the field. I mean, not anyone could catch a screen pass and they're gone. They're in the end zone. They're in the end zone. The defender is still at the 30 or 40 yard line. So when you're able to separate yourself as an athlete that much, that's only going to pay off the older you get, the more you develop. And Caleb Jackson, CJ Jackson, Cherry Hill East, another kid I haven't seen yet, but I've heard great things about. Cherry Hill East fell short the Lenape yesterday, and Ari Rosenfield posted from that game Elite Scouting. Well, I assume it was Ari there because I know Elite Scouting. He's usually the guy you see around South Jersey covering guys like that. He actually gave Caleb Jackson a shout out, said that even though they lost, he was kind of the one that led Cherry Hill East in the loss. So I mean, Lenape, as we touched on earlier, is a team that is experienced. They got Ty Dorsett, who's going to Merrimack. So to be able to stand out against a quality team like that, to garner the attention of, well-known scouts in the area as a freshman, that's something, as a player to be proud of and something to, build on going forward. And Cherry Hill East is a program that's young right now, but give them a year or two, they'll be right back in the mix of South Jersey Group 4 as they usually are.
So next up, let's take a look at the county or the conference favorites.
Yes, so I'm so happy that they're finally doing county tournaments in South Jersey now.
Wow!
A lot of leagues did it. The Cape Atlantic League has done it for a little bit, but Burlington County, Camden County, and the Tri-County Conference Tournament are all new. Tri-County Conference Tournament started the COVID year. That was their way of building a playoff format because in New Jersey, we didn't have playoffs during the COVID year. Each team was allowed to play a maximum of 15 games. That was their way of kind of building a playoff atmosphere so those kids could experience the playoffs. There's a lot of seniors who were deprived of that opportunity of playing in the playoffs. And then last year was the first annual Burlington County tournament and Camden County tournament, which, as I said, was long overdue. I mean, I look back at when I was in high school, many years ago, when you had Pemberton, Willingboro, Medford Tech, and then you factor in Lenape, Cherokee, Shawnee. They're in the Olympic Conference. They're not always playing the Burlington County Scholastic League teams. I just look back and think, wow, if we had that back when I was in school, that would have been off the wall. I mean, those places would have been selling out in the middle of a week just to see a county tournament game. So, the Burlington County tournament, as I said, includes teams mostly from the Burlington County Scholastic League, but there's also teams from the Olympic Conference.
I think right now, with the way they've been playing, Lenape is the team to beat. Morristown's the defending champion. They beat Lenape in the championship last year. So Morristown, you have to consider Rancocas Valley, Cinnaminson, Medford Tech. Burlington Township is another team that's been playing very well. I meant to mention them when we were going over the rankings. That's another team that's been trending upwards. All their losses are to teams ranked in the rankings, and they've been playing very well. They're a team to watch in the county tournament. But I think right now, with how Lenape has been playing, they're the team to beat. The Camden County tournament features teams from the Olympic Conference and the Colonial Conference. Now, the Camden County tournament does feature a couple teams from Gloucester County. Like Woodbury plays in the Camden County tournament. Woodbury is a Gloucester County school, but it's to kind of help balance it out. They play in the Colonial Conference, which includes Camden County schools. So they're playing Camden County schools all the time. Kind of helps balance out the numbers. And I mean, right now, Camden is the team to beat in that. I went to the semifinals for that tournament last year, or I forget if it was the semifinals or the quarterfinals, but you got Camden who's going to be there, East Side, Paul VI, Camden Catholic, Haddonfield, a lot of great teams. I mean, it's going to be so much fun. Last year they had the semifinals at Sterling High School. I believe this year they'll be at East Side. So they're switching up the locations. I like how they're trying to get other venues involved and stuff like that. But it's a great tournament. Some of the best teams in South Jersey, probably the most loaded field in terms of county tournaments in South Jersey. But obviously, as I said when we were talking about the rankings, until someone can dethrone Camden, they're the team to beat in any county tournament, South Jersey tournament. I mean, that's just how it goes. This is how it goes. Moving forward, the Cape Atlantic League tournament, that includes members of the Cape Atlantic League, which is Atlantic County, Cape May County, and there's a couple Cumberland County schools in there, such as Vineland, Millville. Those schools, they play in the Cape Atlantic League. Then on the girls' side of things, you have Our Lady of Mercy Academy, who's actually having a very good season, top 10 girls team right now. They're located in Gloucester County, but they're right on the border. So they're in the Cape Atlantic League. They'll compete in the girls' tournament, even though they're from Gloucester County. But right now, Cape Atlantic League, Middle Township looks like the favorite. Last year, Egg Harbor Township won it. They were, as I said, the Group 4 state finalist. St. Augustine was there in the final. St. Augustine's another sleeper in that tournament this year, but they're kind of young to their standard as a traditional power in South Jersey, led by Paul Rodeo, obviously one of the greatest coaches in state history. Middle Township is the favorite. You got Ocean City in the mix, whose only 2 losses are to Middle Township. They've gone toe-to-toe with them both times. Atlantic City, Mainland, and that's pretty much the top dogs right there. And there's a couple sleepers. Wildwood Catholic is a battle-tested team. Egg Harbor Township, they're young this year, but they can play some guys tough. St. Joe's Hamilton. The Cape Atlantic League tournament's always fun because there's always upsets. As I mentioned earlier in the show, when Mainland went on a run and won it 2 years ago with predominantly sophomores, they were the 8 seed. And at the time, it was only an 8-team tournament. They've expanded it since. It was only an 8-team tournament. They were the first team to win the tournament as an 8 seed. And I was there at the final when they beat St. Augustine, when Samaj Bethea, who we talked about earlier, was at St. Augustine, is at Camden now. He hit a buzzer beater to force overtime. Mainland won the game in overtime. Cohen Cook, their best player right now, who's averaging close to 20 points a game. The kid I said is going to New Hampshire to play football. He had about 26 points in that game as a sophomore. They won that overtime. One of the best games I've seen in recent years. So that's going to be a fun bracket. I mean, obviously, Middle Township looks like the clear-cut favorite right now because they've handled business against all the Cape Atlantic League teams. But right now, they look like anyone can win that tournament.
Okay. Now let's go down to next we have up. Let's get to the big dances, the state tournament. All right. Start off with Group 1. You had Pittman, and I think that the champion probably gonna come from this game. I saw who was coming from the north. The north might be like a Payne Tech or Newark Tech, and you have Pittman, and I got College Achieve Prep, which is basically Central. So they have to face them before they even got the Rutgers. Who do you got in this matchup and why?
Well, just a little bit of information on Pittman. They were a team. I forgot to touch on it on the last slide. The Tri-County Conference tournament. I have Timber Creek. I think is a favorite in that because they won the tournament last year. But Pittman is a Group 1 school that could be playing in the final of that tournament. They're led by Elijah Crispin, whose
I know
father
the
is
Crispins.
Joe Crispin. Yep, Joe Crispin, who was coaching at Rowan. He's now on the Penn State staff because obviously he was a star at Penn State, played in the NBA for a little bit on the Lakers. It's interesting going into the year, Joe Crispin relocating to Penn State, taking a job on that staff. Everyone thought that his son Elijah was going to go to State College High School. I believe he went up there. I believe he played in the live period with them because I remember when I went to Philly Live, his name was on the roster with State College. And then earlier this year, I'm reading an article. He was back at Pittman. He decided to come back to Pittman, stay with his grandparents. He's a tremendous player. He hit 1,000 points the other day. I believe the Crispins are the first family since the Wagners to have 3 generations of 1,000-point scorers in South Jersey.
Wow.
So in terms of this matchup, I think college achieved prep might be a tall task for Pittman. Pittman is a good team. I've seen them a lot this year. They're the clear-cut favorite in South 1. But I think college achieved prep with the talent that they have, that might be a little bit too tall of a task for them. But I definitely think we should expect Pittman to be in this game because South Jersey Group 1 it's theirs to lose. I mean, for them, their goal has to be to just not have a letdown. You know, as a team, when you're rolling, sometimes you get comfortable, you get nonchalant, and that's when a letdown comes. As long as they can avoid that, they can avoid having one of them nights where the shots just aren't falling, they should be playing in this game. But I would have to take your pick probably and take college achieve prep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with college achieve with Deuce Jones, Anthony Morrow, Jabron Harris. I just think they have a little too much firepower. But I want to see Crispin play because I saw Joe and John play, and when they was playing in back when I was in college. They was shooting from almost half court, bro. Like no exaggeration, it was crazy.
That's exactly how Elijah Crispin plays. He can shoot from deep, and it causes defenders to have to step up and commit to that shot, commit to closing out. And the next thing you know, he's beating you off the dribble. And Pittman is just an experienced team. I seen them play last year. They were a team that wasn't quite a top 15, a top 20 team in South Jersey. But they went on a run. They made it to the South Jersey Group 1 semifinals. They went toe-to-toe with Woodbury. Ended up winning the Group 1 state championship. And they pretty much brought everybody back from that team. So going into the year, it was like, okay, this team's experienced. They learned from last year. We should expect them to be good this year and kind of run the table in South Jersey Group 1. And so far, they've continued to make statements against Wildwood, Salem, teams they're probably going to see in the playoffs, proving that they are the team to beat in South 1 right now. But yeah, Elijah Crispin, tremendous player. He plays just like his father, his uncles. And you mentioning Deuce Jones. Deuce Jones is a guy I've seen play a lot when he was at Trent Catholic and St. Thomas. I've interviewed him a lot. I actually did a story on him in the summer when he was playing with NJ Shore Shots. And he's committed to LaSalle now. But I remember him telling me in the summer he had landed on Michigan's radar with Phil Martelli out there. And he told me Martelli was joking with him and said he's like, I recruited your dad, I recruited your uncle. He's like, I need to get me one of them Joneses. So,
I like that.
That was a cool little story he shared with me. But he's a tremendous player. I've always loved watching him play. I seen him play as a freshman at Trent Catholic and light it up against Don Bosco Prep back when he was a freshman. And just an electrifying player to watch.
Now let's head into Group 2, which features 2 teams that were suspended last year. Camden High School versus Arts from Newark.
So I mean, Camden, as I said several times in the show, they're the team to beat right now. I mean, they're tremendously talented. Last year it was just an unfortunate situation what happened with that, but they going into the tournament, they were the team to beat. They won a Group 2 state championship prior to that, and they most likely would have won it again if they had the opportunity to continue to play. And even DJ Wagner's freshman year, when COVID happened and everything, they were the team to be in Group 2 that year. I mean, it's crazy to think they could have had 4 titles in 4 years, and then his sophomore year, that's when they didn't have playoffs at all. This is the program that could have had 4 state championships in 4 years. They're tremendously talented. Billy Richmond, Elijah Curry, Nas Simmons has been tremendous for them coming down from New York. Manny Joe Samuel, Teron Murray, just a talented team. They're deep. well coached. I don't know much about Newark Arts this year. I haven't seen them play, but I'd imagine Camden would probably be the favorite in that game.
Indeed, I'm gonna agree. They have Kevin Edwards, a wing that can score the ball, but I just think the Panthers are going to be too much, and they're going to be hungry, especially after what happened last year. You know what I mean? So we are definitely in agreement on Camden winning this one. Now let's get to Group 3, which gets a little more interesting. You got Camden East Side, and I got Ramapo coming to meet. Who do you think gonna win?
So this is one when you texted me the other day and asked me, like, send me them predictions for each of them groups down there that you're covering. Group 3 is a tough one. This was probably the hardest one for me to pick in terms of a South Jersey winner because Camden East Side's going to be in the mix. Morristown, Ocean City, Cherry Hill West, Timber Creek. But I just feel like you cannot bet against Camden East Side, being that they won the Group 3 state championship last year prior to them not playing in the playoffs. They were hitting their stride at the right time. I seen them play in the Camden County tournament the quarterfinals. They beat Haddonfield, and they were just playing at a different level. And this is an interesting matchup. I hope we get this rematch as a fan of basketball, because I was there when these two played in the state championship, and that was a tremendous game. Camden East Side pulled it out. This time around, though, it's hard. It's going to be different. I mean, Ramapo is great. I've seen Peyton Seals play for the past couple of years. He's a tremendous player. I think it'll be another instant classic. If I had to pick, I guess I'll go with South Jersey here. But this could go either way. It's hard for me to make that determination right now, but I'll go with the South Jersey side of things and go with the East Side Tigers.
I'm gonna go with Ramapo, and I like Peyton Seals, and I know Camden East Side is stubborn and they play hard, but I just think Ramapo's schedule has been crazy this year. I think that's gonna prepare them for that showdown. Like the schedule they played has been crazy this year, and I think that they're gonna get their revenge and knock off Camden East Side at Rutgers. So I'm gonna go with Ramapo for that one. All right, let's hit up Group 4. You have Lenape, and I'm going with Elizabeth. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so for South 4, Lenape, as I said, is the team to beat. They've proven that. It's just the fact at this point being that they were in the final last year. This year, they stumbled out the gate a little bit. They lost to Middle Township. They lost to Mainland. They played Eastern at home. They hosted them. They beat them there. They went on the road and beat Eastern tonight. They look like the team to beat in South 4. Eastern's going to be in the mix. They might meet a third time in the sectional championship. Central Regional from the Shore Conference will be in the mix. And you got to watch out for some other sleepers. But right now, they're just experienced. They have the star power. Their role players step up for them. They're well coached. And this is a team that's been in this situation. When Derek Simpson was there, they went on a run. They're used to playing big games. I believe they've won over 90 games since the start of 2019 or 2020. Haven't lost many games in that stretch. So they're the clear-cut favorite in the South. In terms of playing Elizabeth, that's kind of been Lenape's kryptonite. Is they get to the sectional semifinals, and they haven't been able to pull out that big one against the Central Jersey representative and North Jersey representative. So we'll see. This year, maybe this will be the year where they kind of, change the tide, because I know they haven't won a state championship since, I believe, 2009 off the top of my head. So this is the group. They're hungry. Like I said, I've been seeing them battle and win close games. This could be the group to finally get over that hump and win the big one.
Yeah, I like some of the talent they have. The only thing that I'm scared of for them is if Elizabeth make it and they meet up, is Calicchio, Elizabeth coach. He I think he has maybe 6 or 7 state titles. I think it's 6. And many of them was at Linden. Then he came to Elizabeth. I think he got 1 or 2 there. But in a 1-game situation, unless you have overwhelming more talent, it's hard for me to bet against him.
Absolutely.
In that kind of situation. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
They
No, I
got a
agree
couple
100%.
players. London Carson is tough. They even got a nice freshman, Jaden Johnson, who's emerging. But Phil, in those kind of games, he's been in that war so many times. It's hard for me to bet against them. So I'm gonna have to go with Elizabeth for that one, for that state title.
Hey, I absolutely agree. It's hard to bet against Phil in those kind of games when he's been there so many times. You mentioned London Carson, Jaden Johnson. I seen those guys play a Newman Goretti in Philly Live over the summer, and I could tell they were. I was like, this is the traditional Elizabeth team I'm used to seeing. Fast, play good, playing defense, can shoot the ball.
Can you lighten your light up a little bit?
What's that?
Your light. Can you get a lighten your light up a little bit?
Yeah. Is that better?
Yeah. So that's the only thing that like betting against him in that game is tough. Now let's head into the non-publics. Non-public A, which was funny how you now you got Rutgers Prep and I threw in Don Bosco. Now let's talk about your selections.
Yeah, Rutgers Prep is a well-coached team. They're experienced. That's a hard group. It's an interesting group. It's going to be fun come playoff time with Rutgers Prep, St. Joe's Metuchen, Paul VI, Christian Brothers, Red Bank Catholic. There's a lot of teams that could win that group. It's really just a matter of who hits their stride at the right time. But I would think right now, Rutgers Prep is battle-tested. They've won some big games early this year. So I think they would be the representative coming out of the South Jersey bracket, although they're not traditionally South Jersey. They play in the South Jersey bracket. But Don Bosco Prep, I mean, is arguably the best team in the state right now. Them and St. Rose. I would have them winning that game with Dylan Harper. The center they have is tremendous. The sophomore with some Power 5 offers. I know Auburn's offered, Kansas State. Brady Laughlin is probably arguably the best shooter in the state. Isaiah Brown is a great guard. They're just experienced, and you have one of the best players in the country. I mean, sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes
I think it'll be Don Bosco Prep will probably run away with it this year. You know what I mean? Like they just got too much right now. What you think about Dylan and Ace going to Rutgers? Him and Ace Belly.
I mean, it's awesome for us as New Jersey, basketball reporters, fans, to be able to see two of the top players in the country team up at Rutgers. I think it could, be a situation where it motivates more guys to stay home and go to Rutgers playing the Big Ten. So we'll see. Hopefully over the next couple of years, they set a trend and we see more top players go there and we see Rutgers become a power. And Rutgers has been on an upward trend past couple of years, making the NCAA tournament. They've had some tremendous players come through there. So I'm definitely excited as a fan of basketball. I can't wait to go up there and watch them play. And hopefully it's just, the beginning of something big at Rutgers.
And let's finish off the state predictions with Parochial B. You got St. Rose, and I put Montclair Immaculate.
Yeah, St. Rose, another team, plays in the short conference, not traditional South Jersey, but they play in the South Jersey bracket. Number one team in the state right now. I seen them play Bishop Eustis last year in the South Jersey non-public B final. The Hodge brothers are outstanding. Matthew Hodge going to Villanova. His brother Jaden Hodge is a top recruit in the country who pretty much will have the ability to go pretty much wherever he wants when it's all said and done. And those are the headliners, but the guys that they have, the role players that fill in, Gio Panzini is great for them. They got a couple guys that come off the bench that contribute. They're coached by Brian Lynch, who was a Villanova guy himself, was a standout at Christian Brothers Academy. They're the number one team in the state right now. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's not much to overthink. Not much analysis is needed. They should breeze through the South Jersey portion of that, and I would expect them to be the state champion in that group. And they went toe-to-toe with Roselle Catholic last year. They really showed last year they could hang with the big dogs, and I think this year is really their year to really establish themselves and leave a legacy.
They got a tangle on Saturday night with
Yes.
the number one team in the country. What you think?
hoping I can make it up there. Got a busy day Saturday, but I think that's just a great experience for both St. Rose, New Jersey basketball fans, being able to go to the Metro Classic and be able to see Cooper Flagg, the number one player in the country, number one team in the country in Montverde Academy, being able to see them play in New Jersey, being exposed to that, seeing that level of basketball. And for St. Rose, a team who has state championship aspirations, as we just said, to be able to play on that stage against that kind of talent and use it as a measuring stick. I mean, obviously they're going to go in with the objective to win, but, you know, whatever they get out of that game, win or lose, I think is going to be bigger for them down the road and kind of help them in terms of trying to win that state championship.
Now I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. If we had a TOC, who would win it?
Wow, that's a great question. I actually tweeted something out a couple weeks ago. And I'm not an opinionated guy on Twitter. I try to just keep it very professional and informational. But I had a thought come over me a couple weeks ago. I was like, wow, I can't believe they took away the Tournament of Champions, because this is truly a year where it's anybody's game. Past couple years, we've seen it historically where, you know, St. Anthony's was dominating the Tournament of Champions. There was years where Roselle Catholic was the head and shoulders favorite. I feel like this year there's a couple different teams who legitimately have a shot at winning it. And I think right now, I know St. Rose is the number one team in the state. If I had to pick, though, I'd probably go with Don Bosco Prep if we had a Tournament of Champions. I think just that experience, being well coached, as I said, I think that would prevail in that kind of game. I think it'd be a tremendous game if it ended up being Don Bosco Prep versus St. Rose or anybody else. But I think ultimately in the end, Don Bosco Prep would be the one to pull that one out.
Got a couple more questions before we wrap up. Let's talk a little bit about do you feel like in South Jersey that the players down there and the coaches down there get their just due recognition statewide?
As a South Jersey guy, I do. I know a lot of people in South Jersey feel otherwise about that. They're kind of, you know, on the other side of that. But I think the thing that's helped is over the years, you see a lot of South Jersey programs, the top programs that we mentioned when we were going over the rankings and stuff like that, they've kind of inserted themselves into the action. They're going to these big time showcases. They're playing in the live events over in Philadelphia and in different parts of New Jersey in the off season. So I think programs who are talented and know that they have high expectations and they have the players to where they say to themselves, okay, we need to showcase our talent. We need to give these kids the platform. I think a lot of South Jersey programs have capitalized on it. I think it's improved over the years. If you asked me the same question a couple years ago, I might have been on the other side of it, but I think it's been trending upwards. And I do think South Jersey still, in a sense, is overlooked, just because North Jersey is a lot bigger in terms of, you know, population and just I feel like there's more teams up there. I mean, you have a North Section 1 and North Section 2. And a lot of traditional powers come from up there. All the top non-publics are from North Jersey. So I do feel at times South Jersey, and not even just basketball, football and baseball, I do think they get overlooked sometimes. But at the same time, I do think they get the recognition they deserve. And at the end of the day, state championships in any sport are pretty much North Jersey versus South Jersey. So if you win the state championship and you're a South Jersey team, there you go. You're letting your game do the talking. You're proving it there. Same thing for a North Jersey team. You win the state championship. You prove you are the best in the state in your group. I think that's enough of a statement right there to be able to earn the recognition that you deserve.
Now let's take a look talk about the incident with Atlantic City and Mainland. And they talked about with Atlantic City, are they still suspended for the state, or did they win the appeal?
The last I read, they were allowed to play in the Cape Atlantic League tournament. They're going to be allowed to compete in that. But I believe the state did not accept their appeal. I believe they're appealing again. I'm not completely sure on that, though. I read something the other day in the press of Atlantic City and on NJ.com. but I'm not sure what the situation is with that. I didn't look too much into that situation. I've heard about the incident, stuff like that, but I didn't really get a chance to watch the video or anything. I mean, from what I've heard, it's just an unfortunate circumstance. But yeah, with my platform, I try to just keep it to basketball. And I understand the news, like when incidents like that happen, it's news that has to be addressed sometimes. But I try to just keep it to basketball.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. Do you think that the rule is too harsh?
Again, I'm not really sure. I don't know what the rule should be. What they should do, what could be done to prevent situations like that. I don't know. So I wish I did know. I wish I had the solution, but I don't know in terms of that circumstance.
What do you think about the Camden situation when they had the crazy? I just want to ask, like, what was the climate down there when Camden was going through that investigation and stuff, and people didn't know if their state title would be removed or that kind of thing? What was the climate down there in terms of the basketball?
I mean, I guess the climate was just a matter of uncertainty, like you said. There was a question on if they were going to lose the state championship, and really, a lot of people didn't really. I mean, it came up in discussions, but nobody knew what was going to happen, so there really wasn't much to talk about. It was just a matter of we'll see what happens, and that's really all we could do was just sit back and see what happens because nobody really knew what was going on. No one knew what was going on behind the scenes in terms of what the state was going to do in terms of making decisions. So it was really just a waiting game for all of us. We just kind of sat back and had to see what happens, Do
you feel that they were unfairly targeted?
I mean, again, I don't really know. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. My job is pretty much to just, show up to the games, cover the players, cover the coaches. My objective is just to give people the recognition they deserve, put players in the spotlight, coaches in the spotlight, programs that are doing well, reach these communities, and parents love it when you're recognizing their kids and their coaches in the community. So that's really that's what I try to keep my focus on.
Indeed. Well, Kev, man, thanks for coming on tonight. I'm glad we was able to put it together and get through the technical difficulties to put on a good show. I got a lot of education on different teams and coaches and things of that nature down there, man. It was definitely a joy to have you on, and hopefully we could team up to do some stuff together, man, because I think we have some like minds and we both want to help some kids, man. So we need to team up and do some kind of event or something together, man.
Hey, absolutely. That'd be great. I'd love to do something like that. I appreciate you having me on again, being able to have that trust in my knowledge and my information and allowing me to come on here and share some information on South Jersey basketball. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, good. No doubt, brother. Now, before you leave, let everybody know where you could be, where they could see your stuff at, the different platforms you on.
So our website is d2sportsnetwork.com. Letter D, number 2, sportsnetwork.com. Primarily cover football, boys basketball, girls basketball, some wrestling coverage, and some baseball coverage and softball coverage in the spring. You can find me on Twitter at @officialkemmons. I also do a lot of work with @SJ Sports Zone, which is South Jersey Sports Zone, my platform there. You can find us also on Facebook and Instagram. Just search South Jersey Sports Zone. You'll be able to find that easily. D2 Sports Network, as I said, is a website. You can find that on Facebook at D2 Sports Network. The Instagram is D2 Sports Network 1, which has a lot of great visual content that you'll see on there daily. And D2 Sports Network can also be found on Twitter at D2_athletics, at D2_athletics, I should say.
All right, thank you, brother, man. It was good having you on, man. And I'll make sure I send you over the podcast, the interview, and the clips once we put them up, man. Thanks for having you on, Kev.
Thanks for having me.
All right, good brother. This is another episode of In the Spotlight podcast. Kev, and for a kid, he knows, not a kid, he's definitely a grown man, but the wealth of knowledge that he had and remembering the games and who beat who, and he definitely has a special talent, man. And hopefully we could do some things together. I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight in the Spotlight podcast. Tune in next week as we have another special guest coming on, and enjoy your night and be safe out there. Shalom.